Yeah, right. I don't know the first thing about duck hunting or duck calling, but I had the opportunity to make a duck call, and I did. And if you want to see how I did it, stick around and I'll show you. Okay, let's kick things off with a really nice blank. This blank's made out of camphor, burl, and alumilite. We'll start by marking centers on both ends of the blank. I'll use those marks to mount the blank between centers. Bringing my tool rest up so that I can start to round the blank. Here I'm using a roughing gouge to round the blank. I just want to take a moment here and remind folks that spindle roughing gouges should never be used on bowls. I've seen quite a few pictures of broken roughing gouges where people have not heeded that advice. It's actually very dangerous. So I'm not going to harp on it, but I just thought it was a good time to mention it. Now that I have the blank rounded, I'm going to go ahead and remount it into the Nova duck call jaws and prepare it for boring. You need to put a 5/8 inch hole all the way through to accept the reed assembly. So I'm using the drill bit to get an approximation of the depth to which I'll have to drill the hole. Again, this is a 5/8 inch Forstner bit, and this material cuts fairly easily, but it's still a good idea to back out every once in a while and clean the bit and continue, which I've done here. I just truncated it for the sake of time on the video. Now that the hole's bored in the piece, I go ahead and remount that and square up the shoulder that on the side of the blank that will meet the reed. Now I'm using a pen mandrel to mount the blank for shaping. Now these little conical pieces are really bushings for turning a duck call, and I made those myself. Here you see I'm using calipers to measure the interior diameter of the trim ring that goes on the top, the bottom of the duck call. And there I'm marking the shoulder to make sure the tenon is long enough. Now, typically when I try to fit something this way, I always sneak up on it versus trying to use calipers to get there in one go. So you'll see that I make a little cut here, I check it, make a little cut there. You'll also may notice that I'm only cutting half of the tenon. That's just to make sure that if I'm a little bit off at the end, that the base of the tenon will be a tighter fit. I can achieve a tighter fit that way, just in case. So here you can see me cleaning up the corner of the shoulder. Now I'm finding that it's a lot easier to remove both the duck call and the mandrel and slide the trim ring over the top of the mandrel versus removing the duck call from the mandrel. Now that I've done that, I can go ahead and put it back, and we can begin the process of shaping. Now, as far as I know, and I don't know much about duck calls, but as far as I know, really at this point you're just decorating it. So you can let your imagination run wild. I went ahead and took this opportunity to practice turning beads in coves, which is actually a very important process when you're learning the art of wood turning. So anytime that you can practice those two techniques, it's always a good idea. This is really good because, like I said, the shape is really up to you. So there's not really a way to get it wrong. So this is a really, really good opportunity to practice on the beads and coves. I'm not really sure where I got this design from, but it did look pleasing to my eye, so that's the way I went. Here you can see me shaping the base. Now, once I'm all done with the tools, I go and sand it. Sanding's not terribly exciting, so I showed a couple of grits. That's it. Now, I did do a little bit of wet sanding with the micro mesh pads before applying CA finish, which is what I'm doing here. I applied several coats, and then after I applied those coats, I went back with the micro mesh and wet sanded all the way through all 9 grits to get a nice sheen. I also use rubbing compound to clarify the finish. It really adds a nice shine, really does a good job. Here I'm putting the duck call together. The assembly process isn't terribly complicated. You just place the trim ring on the bottom and seat that. I actually need to add a little CA. I haven't done that yet. And then you put the reed into the end of it. And there you have a duck call.
Like I said in the beginning of the video, I know nothing about duck hunting or duck calling. Apparently there's an art to it. I found all kinds of information when I was surfing around the internet looking at duck calls after I made this one. In fact, one thing I did learn is that I had it all wrong. I thought this end here was the mouthpiece, but it actually isn't. This end is the mouthpiece. I was actually drawing air in through this part versus blowing air in through that part. Who knew? So anyway, if you enjoyed the video, go ahead and hit the thumbs up button and let me know that you liked it. If you want to make sure that you stay informed about future content that I put out on YouTube, go ahead and hit that subscribe button to make sure that you get notified. You can even leave a comment if you like. I love to hear what you guys think. Above all else, thank you for joining me in my shop today. And remember, dread not and make something. Peace.